Hey, sorry. I know I'm supposed to help. Are you going to be able to help with video, Megan? Just because.
Okay, there I am. Sorry. Yeah, I'll be able to help out. So, okay, I see where it says pause and record.
Yeah, I can. Here, let me admit, folks.
Yeah, and then there's the waiting room. I see that.
Yeah, it's pretty. And then we'll just need to record it once we start, but I just can't be. I'll be kind of in and out.
Okay.
Hi. Hey guys.
I'm going to turn off my phone now. Okay.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then what about Joe? How do I make somebody host if somebody needs to like share their screen?
Yeah, so when you click on the participants button on the bottom, you'll see participants on the right.
Yep.
And then you can kind of select the, like if you scan over their name, it says more, and then you can essentially make them a co-host or remove their co-host privileges.
So like I scanned over Alex, right? And it says more, and it says stop video, spotlight video, allow record, rename, put in waiting room, or remove. There's no like make co-host.
Okay. I mean, I'll be on. I'm just gonna have to duck in and out depending on.
I don't think we're gonna need to make anybody else co-host.
Yeah.
I think it'll be fine. I just was. But recording. Then I think we're good, right? Do we need anything else?
am I a co-host by chance?
I can make you on.
Okay, just so I can do the hand stuff.
Yeah, done.
Know who Jonathan Berger. Hey, Richard.
Hey, Megan.
So Anisha, tell me when you want to get, you know what? Hold on one sec. It is currently recording now. Okay, great.
Yeah. Let's just give everybody
a few minutes.
Another minute.
All right, I'm gonna step away for a second.
Okay, thanks, Joe. I think we're good. Don't worry about it.
All right, should we get started? Do we have enough board members here?
Yeah, I could do, well, if you want, I could do, let's see. Yeah, we've got 7 people on the committee right now, I think.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started because we do have a couple of things to do today. The first, I guess sort of housekeeping. If you are not a committee member, please write your name and affiliation in the chat box so we can have it for record keeping purposes. I circulated the August minutes, so we'll do a roll call vote to approve those. If there are any comments about that, please raise them now. Otherwise, Megan, feel free to do vote or approval.
Okay, approval of August minutes. Anisha Stephen?
Yes.
Megan Joy, yes. Alistair Economakis? I don't think he's here. Andrea Gordillo?
Yes.
Herman Hewitt? I think he's here. Joe Kearns?
Yes.
David Louie?
Yes.
Alexandra Militano?
Yes.
Richard Ropiak?
Yes.
Rodney Washington? Andrew Comey?
Yes.
Great. So we will move on to the next thing. I'm going to do things in a little bit out of order just to, we'll go to the resolution that's on the agenda for tonight. So one just sort of like bigger picture, if any of the committee members have issues that, they would like to bring to the attention of the full committee, proposals for resolutions, et cetera, obviously, please talk to me about them. This was something that Megan identified as a need in the community and proposed this resolution. We haven't, as sort of a committee, we don't always see resolutions that we both discuss and approve in the same meeting all the time, but we will have instances where this comes up. We can, take a meeting to discuss it and then work on a resolution for the next committee meeting. I think there are different ways we can work on it, but hopefully this one is a very straightforward issue, and the resolution is pretty straightforward. So Megan, if you'd like to sort of introduce the context for it, and then I will bring up the resolution because Alex made some comments on it already that were very helpful.
Okay.
So let me figure out how to do that while you.
Sure. So this is, sidewalk cafe licenses that are issued by DCA, Department of Consumer Affairs. So usually the process is when you're applying, there's certain application fees when you're applying for the first time, and they kind of range between the $2,500 to $3,000. But since COVID happened, they stopped issuing those licenses. But they, and I had asked, attorneys saying like, do they then, like, what are they doing with our application fees? And they're like, oh, they're just gonna wait because eventually you'll get issued that license. So it was like, okay. And then I realized the mayor announced last week that, or whenever it was, a few weeks ago, that the open restaurants program was the city was gonna go with that versus the sidewalk cafes. And I don't think that's forever, but that's definitely gonna be for next year. So then like the city's still holding on to the applicants' money, and there hasn't been any talk about them returning those application fees, which is like, a significant cost. It's a few $1,000s. My only concern is for the places that may close down in that meantime. So that's kind of where it came from. The city's holding on to this money and there's no talks of them returning it. So I'd like for them to return the money to, if the applicant so chooses the money to be returned, which I don't think I made clear at the end, so I might want to tweak that a little bit, but that's kind of where we're coming from. and happy to answer any questions about that.
This is the first time I've ever shared my screen, so let me know if you're actually seeing the resolution.
Yeah,
I can't really tell what's happening. Richard, you have your hand up though, and I can't also see the people who have hands up. So Megan, if you see
oh,
those,
yeah, sure.
please-
Yeah.
oh, Richard, go ahead.
Okay, when the city opened up the process for the sidewalk cafes, I do not recall there being, like all of us, I'm aware of several places that their sidewalks. I never thought about a fee. I'm not sure how the city can justify it, except under the heading of long-term practice. But given everything that we're going through economically, I have no problem supporting Megan's resolution asking that they return these fees back to the applicants. What happens next year? Well, we'll wait and see, but at least help the people out now, giving them those couple of $1,000s back. That's all for me.
Susan and Alex both have their hands up, Anisha.
Alex, go ahead and go first.
My amendments were only as to form and grammar.
Yeah.
So they weren't substantive in any way.
So those are on the screen, Alex's changes. Susan?
Yeah, I actually very last minute sent some changes, but it was too late, I guess, for you to see. So I'm not sure it's totally clear that the current tables on the sidewalk are not sidewalk cafes and there's no fees for them. People that have sidewalk cafe licenses, because there's no cafes this summer, had their fees returned. People who applied for a sidewalk cafe and the city did not process it, those fees were not returned. So my change was in the whereas that starts during COVID-19 crisis, the city has suspended payments for sidewalk renewal cafes and returned paid fees. It did not include the return of sidewalk application fees for first-time applicants, because that's the only thing we're talking about is return of first-time application fees.
Right, because they suspended or they returned the renewal fees, not
They did. So after that, what I would suggest is it did not include in that add return of.
So if you're looking at the draft that's on the screen right now, it says, whereas although the city suspended payments for sidewalk cafe renewal fees during the COVID-19 crisis, it did not suspend sidewalk cafe application fees for first-time applicants.
Yeah.
What's the language that you'd like to change?
Did not include the return of that she's asking for. It did not include the return of sidewalk cafe application fees for first-time applicants.
Okay. And we'll take out the suspend. Were there any other comments? Susan, did you have another one? I briefly saw your email. And then Megan, was there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add, because I guess I don't know how to put it, but I just thought of this before the meeting is I don't want them, the DCA, just to return all the application fees and then to feel like businesses, if they are staying open, kind of like lost their place in the line and aren't, you know, like what if we get rid of this open restaurants program, you know, in a year or two from now, they still want to be like sort of in the line to get their sidewalk cafe license, you know, if those come back. So I kind of want to add somewhere at that bottom, like sorry, I can open it up in my own computer. Oh, I can't do that. Yeah, therefore, Community Board 3 requests that the Department of Consumer Affairs refund not all, but sidewalk cafe application fees to restaurant applicants who have yet been granted licenses, or who so choose to have their refund.
Can I say, I don't think you can say, give me back my fees, but keep my place in line.
No, I can't. Like maybe say
Are you asking for all of them to have their application? I'm sorry to interrupt, but all of them to have their fees returned, or just the ones who no longer want to be considered presently?
I guess if they request it, they should get it back. So either their business is in a really bad financial state right now and they could use that $3,000, or they feel like they might close, and so they don't want the city holding on to that $3,000 when, you know, they're going to be closing the business anyway. So like also to restaurant at the request of restaurant applicants. Maybe at the request of restaurant applicants who have not yet been granted licenses.
So can I make a comment?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's getting too almost convoluted, because now you're asking for like lots of different kinds of bookkeeping. Like with sidewalk cafes, they just returned everyone's. I don't think that there are going to be many businesses that are going to say, hold my $3,000 till next summer because I want to stay in line. I mean, people don't have that much security. I don't think we can have them returning some and not returning some, and keeping places in line and not keeping places in line.
That's fine. Yeah, we could just leave it as it was then.
And there's a the missing between that and department.
So the last, it says, therefore be it resolved that Community Board 3 asks that the Department of Consumer Affairs refund all sidewalk cafe application fees.
Just then to restaurant applicants.
To restaurant applicants who have not yet been granted licenses.
So should we take out restaurants, because there are actually other businesses that have sidewalk cafes that might not be classified as restaurants necessarily, like Dunkin' Donuts, I'm just giving you an example, or a coffee shop. You know, they don't necessarily qualify as restaurants, but they still apply for sidewalk cafes.
I think, do they not qualify as restaurants, Dunkin' Donuts and coffee shops?
I believe legally they are.
I think legally they are if they serve food.
It just took out restaurants. It's fees to applicants who have not been
Okay.
licenses.
But if that is a problem, then it's restaurants is also in the first paragraph.
Whereas numerous restaurants were in the process of applying for NYC sidewalk cafe licenses before the COVID-19 crisis.
Maybe just swap out restaurants with businesses.
Yes.
Just do a.
It's in the second paragraph also. I mean, I think it's fine to leave the paragraph that says, you know, restaurants are businesses who are experiencing significant closings and are, you know, having issues. Which is further down.
Okay. So whereas application fees for businesses applying for a sidewalk cafe license are significant, ranging from $2,500 to $3,000 for an unenclosed sidewalk cafe to more than $6,000 for an enclosed cafe. And whereas the mayor's executive order number 126 issued on June 18th, 2020 indefinitely suspended the issuance of sidewalk cafe licenses in favor of the NYC Open Restaurants program. And whereas although the city suspended payments for sidewalk cafe renewal fees during the COVID-19 crisis, it did not include the return of sidewalk cafe application fees for first-time applicants. And whereas the Department of Consumer Affairs that processes sidewalk cafe license applications has not communicated with applicants about when their licenses may be issued or when their fees would be returned. And whereas restaurants in New York City have suffered incredible financial losses due to the health pandemic, with many forced to close, therefore be it resolved that Community Board 3 asks that the Department of Consumer Affairs refund all sidewalk cafe application fees to applicants who have not yet been granted licenses.
Could I add one thing? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Where they suspended the sidewalk renewal fees, it should be, I think, that they suspended and returned sidewalk renewal fees. Right there.
Cool. Are there any other comments?
Motion to approve.
Do we need to do a roll call?
I think we need to do roll call because it's being recorded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sorry. Sorry, just give me one sec. Okay, Anisha Stephen,
Yes.
Megan Joy, yes. Alistair Economakis, oh dear. Andrea Gordillo,
Yes.
Herman Hewitt, absent. Joe Kearns, David Louie.
Sorry, yes.
Oh, all right, Joe, gotcha. Alexandra Militano, was that David or Joe?
Joe. And that was Joe, but this is David. Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks, guys. Alexandra Militano,
Yes.
Richard Ropiak,
Yes.
Rodney Washington, Andrew Comey.
Yes.
Yes, on Washington.
Oh, hey, Rodney.
How you doing?
Okay, great. So let's move on to the Economic Development District needs, and then we'll do the Arts and Culture District needs last. So can you see the Economic Development District needs now? Again, I haven't shared my screen before, so I don't know how this works. Cool. So we made some adjustments in our last meeting, and really about the definition, or like, including what we thought small property owners are. There weren't that many additional comments that I got from people. I added a bullet point around workforce development and funding local workforce development programs because of unemployment and all of the things we heard in our last meeting. But for the most part, there haven't been that many comments from committee members about any other major changes. Is wondering if there are any other sort of final comments to this, where people feel like we are on this, if there are anything else to do or add, or if this is sort of in good shape as sort of the final version.
I want to, I can't raise my hand, sorry, because,
Sure.
But I know, look, I had some side conversations with Alistair. I know he wanted to bring it up, but he's not here tonight. But and I think Susan could probably comment on this, but he wanted to bring up how the increased drug use on the streets, the drug selling and the drug use is acting as a deterrent to people moving into the neighborhood and also businesses trying to operate in the neighborhood. And, you know, he saw that as an economic development issue, and I tend to agree. I just don't know if there's anything that we could do about it within the DNS.
Can I comment?
Yes, go ahead, Susan.
Well, first I want to say that there is the issue, which is separate, the homeless issue, the crime issue, and the drug use issue are in human services, both in health and in homelessness, and in the public safety. And Alistair is particularly concerned about in one specific area around 2nd Avenue. And there definitely is a problem since he first complained about it. And I'm not sure if you've been on the emails. A lot of that problem has been cleared up. One of the reasons it's been cleared up is because there's now construction at Nativity Church where a lot of people are staying, so people have moved. There is no documentation to say that it's impacting the businesses. And I'm going to say, from my observation, it is not impacting the businesses there. I think it's a bad thing. It definitely needs to be dealt with, but I do not see it. Particularly, we have a lot of outdoor dining there, and you have to have reservations. They're as full as they can be. And in talking to other businesses, I don't see it. I'm not saying that it doesn't impact any business, but I don't see documentation. We don't have testimony. We don't have anything to say that that's true.
I also will add, you know, I live very close to Alistair. I also see all of the issues that he's talking about. I do think that there is, you know, it can be seen as an economic development issue. I don't think that it's primarily an economic development issue. And I don't really think that personally don't think it should be included in the district needs statement. I think it's safety or health and human services. I think framing it as being a detriment to business is I think it's like the last issue about it, or the last sort of intersecting point. I think it makes more sense in, I think, other committees.
Susan, did you say that they're going to put it in the Health and Human Services District needs?
Well, homelessness and drug issue is in there. It's also the drug issue is, I'm trying to remember. I know, I'm not saying the crime issue on the streets, which has definitely gone up, is in public safety. You know, we have transportation, sanitation, and public safety.
Yeah. I mean, all of those things have affected my businesses to some degree, but I think I agree with Anisha that yes, like if they're going in Community Board 3's district needs statement anywhere, it should be Health and Human Services. Probably.
Huge issue. Huge issue.
Richard, I see your hand up.
I am reluctant to ever bring anything into a Community Board 3 discussion based on something that occurred outside. But within the last couple of days, I had dinner in Community Board 6, very close to our border. And I saw two people who I knew at the restaurant. We had previously gone to another restaurant. And I said, gee, I haven't seen you fellas there. And they said, well, when they set up their outside restaurant, there were their outside tables. They had people coming by standing over the diners and negatively impacting them. So my friends said, that's why we're not going back to that place anymore. I don't know of any particular place here within Board 3 that has had the same kind of problem, but I could see it as impacting a business very easily. Somebody walks up to one of your diners on your business and comes up to the table, and next thing you know, people aren't coming back to that place again. We don't necessarily need to do it here in economic development, but I would respectfully suggest and request that the district manager bring it up at the relevant committees, whether it's Health and Human Services or whichever. Because I do think it's an issue. It's unstated, there's not much attention paid to it, but I do think it has an impact.
The only thing I'll disagree with you is that there's not much attention paid. It's a huge issue. People are complaining a lot. All the elected officials are working on it. It's at every build-a-block meeting, every police. I think we all acknowledge this is a big issue that's getting increasingly worse.
Okay, thank you.
And let's not single out one anecdotal issue for folks who didn't see. You know, there's garbage. B&H Dairy had an issue today with garbage because there was so much garbage in front of their business from people who had moved out of the apartments that it was causing problems with people frequenting their business. So I don't think we should be suggesting that one particular issue, an uptick in homelessness, and inevitably an uptick in homelessness can lead to an increase in drug use on our streets as a cause for people not moving into the neighborhood or struggling businesses. So I don't think it belongs here. It certainly doesn't belong here. There are a lot of negative things happening in the community that are impacting businesses, and it's not because there's some homeless people on the street in front of the church in the Nativity or in front of the luxury condos that were the site of the 2nd Avenue explosion. So let's move on.
Laura, you have your hand up, so that'll be the last comment on this, and then we'll go back to focusing on the district needs.
Yeah, hi, thanks. I completely agree with, what everyone is saying. I just wanted to add that we definitely have had on the Avima Zoom meetings a couple of merchants who are located on the lower street, 2nd, 3rd, between 2nd and 3rd, who have had active drug dealing going on outside their businesses, and that has been detrimental to their businesses. But it's drug dealing, and we have heard about it at the Build-A-Blocks, and we do understand that that's a long, slow case to build, and that PD is working on it. But I do see a detriment to the neighborhood, not in any particular issue, but in the reduction of city services, trash pickup, policing, everything all around. I don't know if there's any, if you have an interest in including that without particularly, tagging it as a homeless issue or a drug use issue. There's no question about the fact that the piles of garbage and increased drug use that's visible, as opposed to 6 months ago. There's no question about it.
But part of the increase in garbage is because people go to Tompkins Square Park. People are taking food out. They're sitting in the park. I mean, it's unfair to blame conditions deteriorating on the homeless or one particular issue. I could come up with 100 reasons why the neighborhood's becoming more difficult to traverse every day. So I think we should.
Department of Sanitation's actually pulled back services. I don't know if Laura was trying to connect that with the homeless, but trash is a major issue.
I just want to clarify that I'm not speaking about homelessness at all. I'm talking about a lack of of a reduction of services. I'm hearing from business owners that they can't get their garbage picked up as frequently as they could. I'm seeing it pile up on the street. I actually led a volunteer cleanup crew in Tompkins Square this weekend, so I've dealt with it personally. You know, if there's any way to address these items, it has nothing to do with homelessness to me. It has to do with heavy use of our streets and reduction of city services already.
I'm sorry.
Susan, I think Susan is.
I just want people to know these things are very bad. There are a lot of complaints, but they are being dealt with. First of all, as far as businesses having their garbage picked up, that's all private carters. So that is not the city. They should have no trouble they're paying to have their garbage picked up. As far as the huge amounts of garbage on the street, it is a problem. There is a reduction of services. There is no money. So we're saying, where do we want to move it? And garbage seems to be an area that people are concerned about it. The council office up here was getting a lot of complaints about it. It's very much kind of a localized issue in our area. We're suffering more from it than some other areas. So I was asked to bring it up in my district service cabinet meeting. I was also asked to put it on the agenda for October, but we decided October was too late because it's impacting the outdoor dining. So I was then asked to have the exec vote on writing a letter about it, which I have already discussed with Alicia and Paul, because Paul's committee is transportation, sanitation, and public safety. So this will be brought up at the exec. I just want, I understand that one of the sort of disconnects and problems is that people don't know what's being acted on, and I'm not going to say it's going to be taken care of, but at least there's going to be an attempt to have it taken care of. So I just want people to know, yes, it is a problem, and because of the productive complaining, the board is going to try and act on it.
So that my question is then, which is, it sounds like it is being worked on, but then does that mean that we don't need to include it in the district needs, or do you think it'll have more of an impact or help your work if we do include it in the district needs?
Well, don't forget the district needs is for next July. It's not for now. So if you put it in the district needs, it's not going to impact anything that's happening now. And hopefully this situation isn't going to be, we're not going to be seeing the same situation. But you will be voting in October on sanitation budget funding, and that's what this is. It's pickup services. But okay. We have to kind of, with all the huge problems happening now, kind of differentiate between acting on issues now and a district need which is a different kind of problem that we're dealing with next July. Hopefully the garbage won't be on the streets till then.
Okay. We can go back to the actual document. And if anybody has any sort of final changes or comments to this, I'm happy to read it through if that makes sense. It's kind of long though. And you all have basically seen it for 3 months now. So if there isn't any further discussion about it, we don't actually have to vote to approve this, right, Susan?
No, we'll be voting in October. We just kind of want to finalize it, get it in condition. If some huge piece of information comes up between now and October, you can add it, but we'll be voting on this and our budget priorities in October, but we're going to want to focus the time on the budget priorities, and hopefully this will be mostly done.
Okay, great. So I don't see any other hands up about this. So we will move on to the arts and culture district need statement. But if anything does come up for economic development, please obviously email me and let me know if there's anything to be added at another time. So do you guys see the arts and culture district need statement up now? Great. So I will let Carolyn introduce this. Her subcommittee worked on this at their last 2 meetings. And then we can take comments and make changes. So Carolyn, I hand it over to you.
All right, can you hear me? Hello? Okay, basically arts and culture workers and arts and cultural organizations of all sizes have been impacted in a devastating degree by COVID-19. The performing arts sector is one of the hardest hit industries in New York City. There was an article today, I think, saying that 60% of theaters could close because of COVID and the restrictions and the rents. The sector lost 69.2% of its total jobs since February of 2020, which has put cultural workers, including performing artists and administrators, in a vulnerable position. Many gig economy artists and cultural producers have had no income since March and were not able to access unemployment benefits for months. The continuation of unemployment benefits is uncertain, while prospects for new commissions and projects are non-existent since theaters, venues, and all live performances initiatives are indefinitely shuttered. The negative economic impact on the arts and cultural sector is anticipated to last for 3 to 5 years, depending on sector specificities. Artists and cultural workers are the creative capital of New York, are integral to the creative industry that is fueled by New York's tourism and export economy for years. Can we scroll down, please?
Oh, yes.
With the majority of programs and all live performances canceled, all arts and cultural organizations and venues are experiencing drastic revenue loss and significant reductions in annual operating budgets. This has caused an inability to cover operating costs, especially rents, and there's growing fear expressed for the very survival of many organizations. Arts and culture are important to the psychological and physical well-being of our community at this moment of crisis. It is even more important that extra funding, support, and resources are given to local organizations that focus on the population most impacted by COVID, which are low-income people of color. Here are a few specific programs the city could fund for 2022. The city could collaborate with the community to create WPA-style programs to employ artists and cultural workers for the next 3 to 5 years as the impacted arts and cultural industries rebound. DCLA should collaborate with DOE to create grants and funding streams for cultural organizations that provide support services, including remote learning and after-school programs for local schools. DCLA and MOME should create grants and forgivable loans in collaboration with the small business group with specific parameters that can be met from artists and arts organizations. This funding could be used for rent relief, payroll, as well as for creative methods for online and outdoor programming. Many local arts nonprofits rely on City Council discretionary funding for their operations and programming. An FY 2020-21, our council member received a 98% budget cut, drastically reducing funding for these organizations within the district. We are calling on the city administration to reallocate DCLA and other funding to balance this funding reduction to a district that has been, that's been recognized as a vulnerable area given the concentration of low-income communities and marginalized groups. Many nonprofit cultural organizations within the CD receive annual funding through the Department of Cultural Affairs. As resources are redirected to respond to COVID-19, the city's annual budget has become more constrained, so that support for small, vulnerable arts organizations are not certain. And CD3, neighborhood art venues, libraries, community gardens, and parks provide local, often low-cost access to cultural programming, and arts and culture should be integrated into the city planning projects such as designated arts and cultural spaces and new publicly subsidized developments. City Hall should move forward in reacquiring Chara Selvo Hill as a nonprofit community and cultural center, as stated by the mayor in the October 2017 town hall. A restored Chara Selvo Hill can serve needed access for a local web for arts organizations, stakeholders, and leaders that reflect the values of the communities they serve. The city should increase community participation and engagement with the community board regarding all new cultural community spaces and publicly subsidized developments in the district. Okay.
Thank you, Carolyn.
All right.
So, you know, I think there are, from the last subcommittee meeting to now, I think, you know, we've learned that DCLA doesn't do the budget priorities process with us, with the community boards. And some of the things in here are sort of budget focused, that may be better as, you know, specific and separate resolutions rather than being in the district needs. So I think, you know, some of these bullet points towards the end, so we can go through that, but I just wanted to open it up to see if there are any other sort of general questions or comments about this.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's really good and they're all really good ideas. But I'm just wondering, like the funding stuff, I think could either be separate resolutions or should be budget priority stuff rather than DNS.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time raising my hand. Should I speak?
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, also my daughter is having a tantrum, so I may need to shut myself if she starts screaming again. So, I mean, I think we can rewrite it if you think that, I think there may have been some confusion about the back and forth of what the tone should have been, but there definitely is huge needs in our district because there is a concentration of venues and artist workers. And so it is definitely part of the district needs. If we need to rewrite it so that it doesn't, so that it's not so much aligned as a budget line or kind of like a funds request, I mean, we can do that, even though strangely we don't have a meeting this month. However, I mean, we can do it remotely and maybe submit it, you know, we'll find the best proper way to do it. Because we voted in October, right? So we do have time to change it, right, Anisha?
Susan, what do you think is the best way to sort of go?
Well, first of all, I would say you cannot do anything remotely that's not at a meeting because that's against open meeting law.
No. What we meant is before the October full board, right? We have time before the October full board.
If you, well, so this is the problem, and got to figure out how to work around it. So it reports to the economic development. So ordinarily, you would have the committee work on it, and then it would go to economic development. Because economic development meets the first day that it can meet, economic development meets 1 week after the full board meeting. And open meeting law requires that you have to, you know, post everything for 1 week. So nothing can meet earlier. So what you're saying is, how are you going to vote on it at the next economic development meeting without an arts and culture beforehand? And what you would want to be doing, first of all, I just want to say, this is directly talking about current budget losses that, you know, the council member has lost discretionary funds, so there's no funds for the arts group. That can't be dealt with in this district needs, because this district needs is for the year starting next July. So if you want to if you want to act on current funding, you need to do that in an immediate way that's outside this, because the district needs this for next July. So I guess the issue is, how could we do this to vote on at the next Economic Development Committee? You cannot have a quorum of the committee working on it. I guess one thing I could throw out is maybe someone, or maybe two people, because that's not a quorum, could work on changing, instead of talking about funding, talk about the needs. You want funding for certain needs. So instead you could translate that into what are the unmet needs that you're concerned about for next year, and vote on that next month. Because I think your needs are buried in there in the funding issue.
I agree with that, because I think all of the pieces are here. I think it literally just taking some of these bullet points, and instead of saying the city should fund X, Y, or Z, it's just saying there isn't resources for something to happen. And I think it would be easy to sort of convert some of these into needs rather than the funding priorities. Now that we know that the DCLA doesn't participate in the, or I guess we knew, but I didn't know, budget priority process with us. And then we can also think as the Arts and Culture Subcommittee about which of these more immediate needs should just be resolutions that subcommittee is able to do over the course of the next few months, because they are more time sensitive than FY22.
Yeah. And I mean, right now, in terms of small businesses and arts, I don't know if you're following, but there is a huge lawsuit organized by the musicians against SLA because they made it illegal for any ticketing events to be happening, and talking of hindering them being able to make a living. They basically flat out outlawed SLA any ticketing in venues. So like even a bar or something, they cannot ticket people if they have a musician. So this could be something, a huge overlapping thing among nightlife establishments and arts and culture.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I add one more clarification? And this is about, Anisha was talking about budget priorities. The budget priorities we vote on are budget lines in the agencies. If you put in a request, because this has happened more than once, if you put in a request for something, if you vote on a budget request, say funding for such and such program, that is not from the agency, but their answer is, and they do this, they'll say, this does not belong to HPD, this is a council discretionary funding. And the agencies that we're sending the priorities to, they have nothing to do with the council discretionary funds. Those are two separate funding areas.
Susan, to that point, I think what came up in our committee is that because the cuts are going to have a huge impact, and because a lot of the council discretionary funds actually fund a lot of the arts and culture organizations that cater the neediest kids in after school and arts and culture programming. So we wanted the city to step in and give extra help, but I think this is actually something we should do in Arezzo. But it is,
I agree.
Yeah.
I'd like to comment. I think that one, yes, it has a huge impact on what's going to happen to smaller arts and cultural organizations, because basically they have traditionally been funded through discretionary funds through the Department of Cultural Affairs. That's not happening. But you're talking about this is going to be for the following year. So how do you address the issue that all of these people who are impacted by the loss of this funding for this year, how do we help them get into the next year? Their needs are not going to be less next year because they've already been sort of demolished practically with what happened to them this year.
It's a very, very difficult thing. I'm not going to say, we've never experienced this before, so there's no easy answer. But what you're talking about is council discretionary funds. So I would deal with it through the council members. They and the speaker determine with their limited amount of money where it's going. The agencies that we're sending our priorities to have nothing to do with that. That's more, that's strictly council. And you know, you could do a resolution and send it to the council members and then use the resolution to lobby them, basically saying, we want you to change where your pots of money are going.
Okay, the problem, the pots of money are determined by the speaker, apparently. So,
a lot of it.
Right, the other issue is there are arts programs in transportation and I think the Department of Sanitation that would be, that arts organizations and artists would be eligible for. Is there any way of including that in this, that the funding perhaps might be increased there?
We have not had our budget consultations with them yet. Nobody put that question in on the budget, but we can try and get it in. I don't think they have a separate program line for that. I think what they do is when they're looking at, say, renovation of a park, they're going to include a certain amount of money in that renovation for this art wall. They don't have a separate art budget line. So that is something, when the project comes to the community board, that is something you lobby for in that project.
Okay, but what about the Department of Transportation and the Department
It's
of
the same thing. I will ask. I don't believe they have a separate budget line. I've never seen such a thing, but we'll ask.
Okay.
Actually, I can answer. Wendy Foyer is the Assistant Commissioner for Urban Design and Arts in DOT, and she runs the program. But I don't know what happened with the budget this year, so that's the line to ask about, Wendy Foyer's budget.
Our meetings start in about 2 weeks. We'll try and get that question in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Carolyn, how do you want to move this forward? It seems like it's not ready to sort of be, presented fully to economic development yet. It seems like there is some more work to do just to clean it up, given what we have learned in the past couple of weeks. I think that, we can work together to figure out how to change some of those bullet points and then present it at the October Economic Development Committee meeting, and then have the arts and have more arts and culture people come, subcommittee members come to sort of weigh in on it then as well. Susan, does that make sense to you also?
Yeah, I think that's basically the only solution I can see, and it seems very legitimate to me.
Well, since that's the only option that we happen to have at this point in time, what else can I say?
Okay, great. I think it should be pretty easy to do, honestly. And I also think that we can figure out which resolutions can come out of this district, what can be taken out and be made into resolutions also. So you are still being able to work on all of the different issues that were raised. Mm-hmm. I think those are all of the agenda items for today. Are there any other questions, comments, anything on anybody's mind that's pressing? Great. So we can do a roll call vote to end the meeting.
Yes, motion to adjourn. Anisha Stephen?
Yes.
Megan Joy, yes. Alistair Economakis? Andrea Gordillo?
Yes.
Herman Hewitt? Joseph Kearns?
Yes.
David Louie?
Yes.
Alexandra Militano?
Yes.
Richard Ropiak? Oh, sorry. Hold on one sec. I think I accidentally muted Richard. Okay, Richard, you're yes?
Yes.
Rodney Washington,
Yes.
Andrew Comey.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Other time.
Megan, I think you stopped the recording.
Not pause.
All right. I'm not entirely sure, honestly.
Cloud recording.
Olympia, I'm so sorry again that I didn't call on you. I couldn't